Good evening, all. It's great to be able to share with you tonight. And just last week, it was Talon was saying that she is the youngest person to have in J Life and to have presented. And today, I'm the proud owner of being the oldest guy by a long shot, I think, ever to have presented on J Life. At the beginning, I thought the J in J Life was going to stand for geriatrics, so I felt quite at home then. But until Lynn told me that you don't spell geriatrics with a J, but with a G. So obviously, the J in J Life doesn't stand for geriatrics. Just before I start, I must just compliment all those that have gone before in this slot and just say, wow, wow, I'm so proud of you and so proud that God is working wonders through you youngsters in J Life. And with that, with J Life being so filled with people with God confidence, your God confidence is unbelievable. I wish I could have spoken like that even now about God the way you do, and it comes from your heart. So fantastic. Keep up the good work, and thanks be to God. For those that follow me on Wise Wednesday on Hillside Facebook, you will all know that my favorite author is Max Lucado. And so it should be no surprise to you that tonight's sermon or talk is based on a book that he wrote about 8 years ago, a book called God Will Use This for Good. And it's amazing that what he spoke about is very, very applicable to what we're going through now. And the phrase that he often uses in his book is, you'll get through this. It won't be painless. It won't be quick. But God will use this mess for good. In the meantime, don't be foolish or naive, but don't despair either. With God's help, we will get through this. Don't you think that is, as I said before, so appropriate for what we are going through at this moment? In justifying this statement, Max Lucado asks himself a question. He asks, where did I get the nerve to speak such a promise into a tragedy? Then he explains his reasoning through a biblical story. Let's see if you recognize it. In a pit, a deep, dark pit, so steep that no one could ever get out, let alone a 17-year-old boy that had his feet and his hands bound, about the age of lots of you. Even if somehow he could climb out, his brothers that had thrown him in there would make sure he was thrown right back. Do you remember the story? It's a story of Joseph, as told in Genesis. His brothers hated him so much. Why? Because his father loved Joseph more than he loved them. Joseph was the youngest. So his brothers threw Joseph into the pit. But worried about what they were going to tell their father and everybody else, they concocted a story that he had been devoured by wild animals, therefore leaving no trace. But you think that's bad enough, but Joseph's story gets worse. The other knights have all managed to go through the whole of Job in a couple of minutes. So I'm going to try and do the same with Joseph. I'm going to try and tell you his story in a few minutes. He was abandoned by his brothers, as I said before. Did he give up? No, he didn't give up. He called out. Eventually somebody heard his calling, got him out the pit, only to sell him into slavery. That's bad. But did he give up? No. Once again, he accepted the challenge. Within a short while, the Egyptian officer promoted him to chief servant. As chief servant, he ran the household. His boss's wife fancied him, but he did not respond to her advances. So what did she do? She laid a trap for him, and her husband had Joseph jailed. He thought he had tried to molest his wife, as his wife had said. In prison, did Joseph mope around and say, why me? No. Again, he accepted his lot and did his best and was eventually promoted to oversee all the inmates. There he stayed for a while until Pharaoh wanted somebody to interpret his dreams. And the guy that was in prison with Joseph at the time when he got out of prison, and Joseph said to him, please give a good word for me when you're out, profess my innocence, that I may also be free. And this guy forgot all about him until Pharaoh asked around for somebody to interpret his dreams. He told Pharaoh that he knew this guy in prison that interpreted dreams. So Pharaoh said to him, well, go, get him, bring him to me. So he gets Joseph out of prison, has him washed and saved and shaved, and presents him to Pharaoh. Here again, Joseph rises to the occasion. He was eventually to become the second most powerful person of the decade, only behind Pharaoh. Through all of this abandonment, enslavement, entrapment, and finally imprisonment, Joseph never ever gave up. His heart never hardened, and his determination never faded. He not only survived, this is important, he not only survived, but he thrived. The very acts intended to destroy God's servant turned out to strengthen him. When Joseph eventually caught up with his brothers about 30 years later, I think it was 20 or 30 years later, that is a story for another day, he said to them, as you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring about this present result, to preserve many people alive. This COVID-19 will take time to dissipate, but it will pass. Trust God. And you know what? God has already seen the final picture, and it is going to work out. I came across a very powerful statement the other day. It says, God does not always change the situation, but he uses the situation to change us. God redeemed the story of Joseph. Can't he redeem our story as well? Let's go back to the original statement of Max Lucado. Let me read it to you. You'll get through this. It won't be painless. It won't be quick. But God will use this mess for good. In the meantime, don't be foolish or naive, but don't despair either. With God's help, we will get through this. We will get through this. Now let's break the statement down a wee bit. The first part says that you'll get through this. We will get through this. Are you like me? I often ask God, please, just this once, won't you take me around it, not through it? I can't take this mess anymore. But God's favorite word seems to be through, not round, unfortunately. Let me refer you to Isaiah 43:2. I'll read. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And through the rivers, they shall not overflow you. When you walk through the fire, they shall not, when you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, nor shall a flame scorch you. God got the Israelites through the Red Sea. He got the Israelites through the wilderness. And in the Psalms, he goes through the valley of the shadow of death. I'll fear no evil. But it's through the valley. So I guess through is one of God's favorite words. But you know what? He's by our side, and his promise is, as above, I will be with you. No, I might be with you. I will be with you. The second sentence in Max Lucado's favorite saying is, it won't be painless. Wow, there's a lot we have been through and still have to go through. Each one of us with a different burden. Each one of us with a different pain. God does not offer us an absence of struggle, an abundance of strength. Not in this life anyway. But he definitely promises all of that in the next. But the consolation in this life is we have his one promise that we can stick to. He will never, never leave us or forsake us. The next bit of Max's statement is it won't be quick. That's the hard one. This COVID-19 story will be with us for a long time. We all know that. I don't think there is any quick fix. But sometimes God does take his time. With Noah, to be prepared for the floods, it took him 120 years. I suppose to get the animals in the ark 2 by 2 was a problem, so I can imagine it could take 120 years. It took 80 years to prepare Moses for his work. When Jesus was on earth, it took 30 years before he started his ministry. How long will this pandemic last? Only God knows. I'm sure you are like me. I would love a miracle for this all to be over, to bring it to an abrupt end. God may do this yet. Then again, he may tell us, I'm with you. I can use this for the good. Now just make a plan. Plans not to just survive, but to thrive, as Joseph did. And then trust God to help you. Then the last bit I want to break down for you is the section about, but God will use this mess for good. Well, please God. We see a perfect mess. God sees a perfect chance to bring people back after drifting away from him. People that have stopped praying because the times were good. They didn't think they needed him. God has seen a perfect time to see people work together again, to bring them together again, for people to do research work, for people to stand together as one to fight a common enemy. Where leaders of the country are talking to each other now, not about boycotts or wars or things, but how they can help stop this epidemic. Isn't that a miracle in itself? And God is going to work miracles. I've never had so many Christian messages, so many messages of encouragement that I have over the past month. God is in this. And then maybe, just maybe, this will be a chance to bring us all back down to earth and say with all our heart, my God, how great thou art. As I said before, God does not always change a situation, and he definitely did not create this situation. But he uses a situation to change us. Let's use this opportunity. In conclusion, I can hear you all breathing a sigh of relief. If you could speak to Joseph today, I am sure that he would tell you that life in the pit sucks. Yet, for all its rottenness, the pit forced Joseph to look up. All around was darkness, but he could look up and he saw the light. He pleaded for God to come down here and give him a hand. God did this for Joseph at the right time, in the right way, in the right place, and his place was in the pit. Jesus will do the same for you and me, wherever our pit may be. Just reach out, look up, and grab his hand. Let us pray. God, you are in this crisis with us. Please come down and give us a hand. Please, God, give us self-control in an out-of-control world. Please, God, help us to remember your promise that you will never, ever leave us or forsake us. In Jesus' name I pray with so much love and so much thanksgiving. Amen. Thank you all for listening, and I hope the message will resonate within you tonight, and that God will hold you tight in those loving, caring, in those arms we held open so wide at Calvary. Not by nails, but with his love for you and me. I just pray that that love will overflow to each and every one of us tonight. Amen, and take care, and let there be space in our togetherness. Cheers.